Wendy Williams, welcome to Unbroken.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, I'm excited you're here as well.
Yeah,
So let's begin with a little bit of your background. Tell us about yourself and how you got interested in the three principles.
sure thing. Well, I live in the northeastern part of the United States near Boston, Massachusetts. I have been a nurse for more years than I care to remember. I got married at the ancient age of 38, um, to a guy that I just adore. Even as we speak, I adore him. And I have been a nurse, like I say, for a very long time, specializing for years in conditions like HIV, AIDS, cancer, hospice. So I'm a real pro at the bedside when people are saying goodbye. Um,
Hmm.
and right now, my a lot of what I do happens to do with ongoing or chronic pain, and so that's what I do kind of a lot of. I'm still practicing as a nurse in that regard, but I am also having a real focus on bringing the three principles to a wider community in healthcare because a lot of my sisters and brothers in healthcare are kind of tired and burning out a little bit,
Hmm.
especially after the pandemic. So I'm excited to extend the ripples, as I say, for the awakening that certainly the three principles has brought to my life and many people that I know. So that's kind of what I
Hmm.
do.
Wow. And those are, I mean, you're not just dealing with giving people flu shots and, mending broken fingers. Those are some pretty deep human experiences that people are having when you encounter
Absolutely.
them.
Absolutely. So it was an interesting thing when I was a brand new nurse. I worked on what we call in nursing, my colleagues out there will understand, it's called a medical surgical floor, which is a catch-all phrase meaning somebody broke a leg, somebody's got appendicitis, somebody, just kind of general routine things that you need to be in a hospital for a bit. But and there were a lot of orthopedic problems on that floor, broken hips, broken knees, whatever. And there was this one lady in there who had she had cancer in her bones. And so a lot of what we had to do for her was find a way to make her comfortable. We knew that the cancer wasn't going to ever leave, that it was going to be, it was part of her last days. And so there's what we call the report in the morning. So the new nursing staff for the day arrives at 6:30 in the morning and gets report from the night nurses who says, this is what's going on. This is what people need. And it was interesting to me. I said, huh, this is kind of interesting to notice that all the other nurses were like, ooh, that lady in 7 with the bone cancer. And I was like, bring the lady with the bone. And I was a young woman. I was like 22, 23. And so that was a clue. I said, huh, I'm I'm attracted to that. I'm drawn to that. I feel
Hmm.
interested in that. And and it became very, very clear to me that every loved one that was standing around her bed, wringing their hands or holding their hands or crying, was also my patient. It wasn't
Mm.
just the person in the bed.
Hmm.
So that came, as I look back, I feel very blessed that that was a gift that was given to me, that a clear path was said, you're good at this. You know what you're doing when it comes to, you're not afraid. I used to say to other nurses when nurses were trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives, to your point, some people are very well suited to bandages and broken fingers and flu shots. And some of us are drawn to other things. And I said, if you feel like when you're going by a house and it's up in flames and you feel like you want to run in and get people, you might be a cancer nurse or an oncology
Hmm.
nurse or a nurse who likes to work with death and dying. But if you want to run away and go call the cops or call the fire department, say, I'll be right here when they come out, but I'm not going to. I said, but I was one of those people said, I got to get in there and get somebody.
Mm.
So, I think it was just a kind of the way I'm built, I'm designed. Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, that's so interesting in that you noticed it at such a young age. I mean,
Yeah.
22, that's really, yeah,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
young.
Yeah. It was my
Wow.
first job, was this general's medical surgical floor. And then as a result of working with that lady, I I found my next job at a very well-established cancer center here in Boston called Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, but it's not anyway, doesn't matter about that, but anyway, that was the next job, and so I just kind of have built my career on a foundation of, getting to know people well at very difficult times. Now, not every cancer patient is lots of cancer patients do very well and go on, and, so I hope this is interesting to you. But anyway, so some nurses, again, if they say, "All right, what's wrong?" "Oh, you need a flu shot." "Got it. Let's give you the flu shot." "Okay, next." "Okay, what do you need?" "You need a new bandage." "Okay, got it. Next." I was the one that said, "Oh, you need chemotherapy this week. How's it going? Did you have a good rough time last week?" "Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we'll fix it this week." And then I would see them the next week, and then the next
Mm,
week, and then the next week. And then I might, say, "Yay, you don't need more chemotherapy. We'll see you in 5 months with your checkup." And I'll make sure I'm there. You know, so there are some nurses, some healthcare providers that love that kind of longer path of relationship and
mm,
building on that. And then there are some people who say, I just want to go in, take care of you, and move on. Go to like a labor and delivery nurse. Let's get
mm.
that baby. Okay, next. Let's get that baby. Next, let's get a emergency
Right.
room nurse. Okay, patch you up. Next, patch you up. Next. Whereas an oncology nurse or other chronic illnesses really enjoy that longer term association with people. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when in your career did you run into the three principles and what
Ah,
struck you about it?
quite late.
Mm,
So, I've no problem telling you I'm almost 66 years old and I've been a nurse since I was 22, 23. But I discovered the principles, let's see, if I had to do the math right now, I'd say like 8 years ago.
mm.
So when I was 58, 57, 58, and it was a really interesting little rabbit hole of YouTube videos. You know what I'm talking
Right.
about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I was, working on another avenue of deep interest to me, which is relationship health, how marriages can be a soft place to land. There's a lot of medical literature out there about people who do better after a heart attack or do better after chemotherapy, or their symptoms aren't as bad if they have a soft place to land at home with a really solid relationship. So that intrigued me, that kind of marriage, ha ha ha, of relationship health with physical health. So that was intriguing to me. So I was kind of looking in the direction of developing a coaching business regarding marriage health or relationship health. A lot of evidence basis out there for that sort of stuff. So I was kind of, and so there was this guy that said, Steve Chandler, he's really smart. He knows what he's talking about. I was like, okay, like as a coach, so I go, okay, Steve Chandler. And Steve Chandler said, the best or the smartest or the most accomplished psychologist of the 20th century, George Pransky. And I said, George Pransky. Never heard of that name. No, I'm not I wasn't always in psychological realm of nursing care, but I was like, George Pransky. I would think I would have heard if he was the best psychologist of the 20th century. So of course I rabbit holed my way over there. And one of the videos, this is a little bit of a funny thing. There was a video of George Pransky and Steve Chandler talking to each other. And if you know anything about George Pransky and Steve Chandler, you know that they talk very much like this, very articulate, very slow, very deliberate. And this was in the days before I knew that you could speed up a YouTube video. So I felt myself going, please, I'm begging you, wrap it up. I know what you're going to say next. Could you just speak more quickly? And the funny thing was that in the beginning of that particular video, as I recall it, Steve Chandler said to George, he said, George, have you heard that if you and I ever run out of clients, we can have another job making videos or audios for people who want to go to sleep. Isn't that great, George? So the two of them just, laughed and whatever. And I was like, yeah, ha ha ha, not that funny. But I heard something. it was it was like a Lego piece just went and just fell into place. There was something in the talk about the three principles. I don't know the words. I don't know what was said, but it was that feeling and a recognition. I don't think I've ever used that word until this moment. It was a recognition of, oh, I've always known that's who I am. I've always known that every patient I've ever come across, every person I've ever dealt with in my life, I've always known that they were made of good stuff and good stock. And I've always known that we are ideally suited to live in this world that we've been put in. But there was something that said, see, I wanted to show other people. There was nobody in the room but me. I'm like, see, this is what I've been talking about. And I couldn't put words to it, but it was this recognition of, mhm, yes,
Mm.
yes, this is how we work. This is what we're made to work like. And all the bumps and valleys of life and chemo this day and my kids are coming to visit tomorrow and you know all the peaks and valleys of life, we are we can do it. We know how to ride the waves, but somehow we've been told, oh, waves are bad. You got to figure out why you have waves. You got to whack the mole. I call it whack-a-mole. You got to manage your stress, manage life. You know, and I said, I just knew. I just knew. And from I've just been a very happy woman to be hanging around with these people and learning from some of the teachers who knew Sid Banks personally um, and becoming a three principles practitioner um, in a program now to kind of put a stamp of approval on that. And so anyway, it's been a wonderful like I say recognition and waking up to I always knew this was the way it was.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
mentioned the word stress there. And one of the things I noticed on your website was that you said that it is possible to live beyond stress. So tell us what that means to you.
Yeah, yeah. Fill in the blank.
Mhm.
Beyond stress, beyond burnout, beyond anxiety, beyond depression, beyond, fill in the blank. Again, I think that there are circumstances and things that come up. Nobody really wants to have a cancer diagnosis, but not every person that has a cancer diagnosis falls into a funk and just sits there night after night wringing their hands and in anxiety. Some people just say, all right, well, I guess I better cut back on some work hours and I've got to make room for chemotherapy. I've always wondered what I'd like look like when I was bald. There are some people kind of make you know them. They get lighthearted about it. And
Mhm.
then there are other people going, I can't lose my hair. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And this and that. And I'm not judging any of that. I'm just saying there's a variety
Mhm.
of experiences, a variety of ways that people can take their circumstances. And so for beyond stress, there's a place, and words are so inadequate, as we've heard in the three principles. They're so inadequate. Is it literally beyond? Is it underneath? Is it beside? Is it imbued? Beyond sounds good to me. But there's a group in the UK, Beyond Recovery,
Mhm.
right? There's a place of inner resilience, quietness, the stuff that makes the same power that just gave me enough oxygen when I just took my last breath right now, right now, and I'm breathing out. The same power that's able to filter in the oxygen, take out any of the germs that might be floating around in here and expel them, and create the right amount of carbon dioxide to breathe out to keep me oxygenated, healthy. That same power that I don't think about except what I am right now is at work in me to bring my mind and my heart Okay, you got cancer. Okay, but you also have 3 children that you love. Okay, you also have, I don't have 3 children. I just made that up. But, you know, uh, it can filter things out and bring me back to a steady state. In nursing, we call that homeostasis.
Mm,
So there's a place beyond what's going on. And it's not to say to ignore what's going on or to think positively about it, positive psychology. No, I'm just saying that whatever's coming our way, we do have the ability, capacity. It's part of the design. Our friend Mavis Karn calls it the divine design, right?
mm-hmm,
That it works.
mm-hmm,
And so beyond stress, beyond burnout, beyond, there's a place. It's sort of like somewhere over the rainbow. Again, I haven't thought of that before today either. But where bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow,
mm,
right? There's a place, and it's always, always, always there. Just like it's always, always, always working to make my oxygen levels work. I mean, right now I'm digesting food that I ate 2 or 3 hours ago. I'm not sitting there going, gee, I hope my gut's working. Hmm. I wonder if I'm taking out enough carbohydrates from my food. I hope so. Do you think, gee, I really hope that I'm getting enough, my kidneys are clearing out my urine. Gee, I hope I don't have to think about that. And I have been, maybe you have been enculturated through growing up in the 20th century that I have to worry about every time I have an anxious or a difficult thought. Oh, what does that mean? What do I have to do about that? Oh, there's something to be done. Oh, I need to follow that rabbit trail, as opposed to saying they come and they go. One thing I say to my clients is, if you could look back over the last 6 months or your whole life and add up the number of things that have actually worked out the way you dreaded that they would, how many hours have any of us spent going, oh gosh, I can't believe it, like right now I literally have a relative that's in some gosh, the word legal trouble. It's having
mm,
legal trouble. And so how many hours, I literally haven't spent that many in the last 6 months because I now know. But years ago, had this happened years ago before the principals, I would have been wringing my
mm-hmm,
hands, calling up 10 different lawyers. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Calling up friends who've had other friends that have been involved with law problems. I would have been asking my whole church to pray, like we need a prayer service. We need, and and not to say that I literally have asked people to pray for our situation. I literally have said, I wonder what could happen, but it's been such a small amount of time. And when I look back over the last 6 months, what it looked like 6 months ago was very, very dark. It has not been resolved. Where are we? Whatever, in March of 2024. The situation has not been resolved, and it isn't anywhere looking as dark as it did 6 months ago.
mm,
I could have spent hours, and I would have spent hours, days, months of my life wringing my hands, but things come and they go. And I don't, just because I look at something and size it up, doesn't mean I've sized it up accurately or that things can't change.
mm-hmm,
So there's just something really, there's always something beyond. And what I have uh, thought about and worried about in the last number of months, or anyone has, if you feel like answering it, but how many things have you worried about that have actually materialized in the way you worried about them? I mean, when you look back and go, what a waste of time. What a waste of time. If I could have had those hours back, you know?
mm-hmm,
And so today I've got them. Do I get
mm,
caught up and anxious? Sure, I do. If I'm in a lower state of mood or whatever, do things look really real and solid and like, oh boy, this is trouble coming? Sure. And there's also, thank goodness, like an eighth of an inch of awareness a little bit that says, "Oh, you're having a rough time right now. Look at you having a rough time." And it's not like I talk myself out of it. Sometimes I say, "Yeah, I am having a rough time, and I'm gonna go get a chocolate bar, and I'm gonna get really mad, and I'm gonna call 10 friends." Sometimes I'm aware that
Mhm.
but there's a little bit of space that I cherish from knowing the principles. It's just the awareness that this too shall pass. It always has, it always will. Every wisdom book in the world that we have access to says the same thing. And it's thanks to Sid Banks and the three principles that it's worded in such a way that that Lego piece just kind of dropped in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I imagine for nurses, especially, and doctors, healers, knowing that the patient is as resilient as anybody else must be such helpful information. Yeah.
Helpful information in terms of me as the nurse going, "You got this." You may not be able to see it right now, but you do. You're absolutely right. It's absolutely wonderful to be able to sit there and not be pulled in, if you will. Um, and it's also wonderful as the healer. I love that word. Thank you. Um, Not that I am the healer, but you know what I know what you mean. A healing presence is to create an environment or a space where allowing that person to verbalize, cry, wring their hands, uninterrupted, uh, deeply listening to them. In some circles in healthcare, they call it generous listening. It's been unbelievably wonderful to really hear people reach their own conclusions
Mm.
or say, "Oh, maybe I should move to my sister's because she's got a house all on one floor. And since I've got a broken hip and I'm maybe I'll just ask my sister." That's a good idea. Now, do I know anything about her sister's house? No. But if somebody's going, "Oh my gosh, how am I gonna, I live alone. What am I gonna do? My hip's broken. I'm not gonna be able to climb my stairs. I'll have to hire somebody." And they might, but by listening to them, like I say, I don't know about their sister and the one floor, and it's a great idea. Sounds good to me. I might be able to add my 2 cents worth, which is when you get to your sister's house, make sure there are no scatter rugs because those can really trip you up when you're on your crutches or on your walker. So get rid of the scatter rugs when you're at your sister's. Might be able to add 2 cents, but that's just a really easy example. But
Mhm.
yes, to answer your question, it is a wonderful thing for healthcare providers to be able to know that. And yeah, yeah,
Mhm. And so you mentioned deep listening there, and we
yeah,
talked about this before we pressed record. There's a difference between deep listening and active listening. So
yeah,
talk to us about that.
yeah. So healthcare providers worldwide are taught to active listen,
Mm.
which is to do exactly what you're doing.
Oh.
No, no, it's good. Mm, I hear you without necessarily saying the words, "I hear you." Mm, oh, there's something called mirroring.
Mm.
Like if somebody's sad and crying, you just go, mm, mm, right? Um, so let me get this right. You said that you're worried about your stairs at your house with your broken hip because you live on the second, you're, if, have I got that right? Oh, I do have it right. Okay. And did I hear it right that you said that you have a sister who has oh, okay. Active listening is literally remembering, recalling, mirroring. It's a wonderful tool. And what seems to be the golden ticket when it comes to listening is clearing my mind. And as the listener, to say, I want to see the world as this person sees it. I want to feel the world as this person feels it. So I'm just going to literally just listen. And it doesn't mean inert, but I don't have to remember what they're saying. I don't have to, I'm just have this sense of interest and curiosity and patience and let the person just go. And it really levels the playing field. There's a wonderful person in the world called Naomi, Rachel Naomi Remen. Do you know that name?
Mm-mm.
She's a she's a physician and she's in her mid to late 80s now, but she's written some wonderful books and she's written some really stellar bits about helping and fixing while they come from a good place, and that's what doctors and nurses and health and social workers and psychologists do. We want to help and we want to fix. There's a little bit of a power imbalance there. I'm a helper, I'm a fixer, I'm in a good place. You're in a very upsetting place and you need my help. I want to go in there and fix it. When you do some generous listening or some deep listening, just two human beings, and it's just so much more therapeutic, kind, trusting in the resilience of everybody when we listen from that place of no judgment. And I don't mean judgment like, oh, you're a bad person, but judgment meaning, oh, I know what you mean. Oh, I'm adding 1 + 1 = 2. I know. Yeah, the broken hip. Yeah. Just listen. Just listen.
Mhm.
It's very, very different than active listening. It's like 180 degrees different than active listening.
Yeah. Oh, I love that description. That's great. And, I had an experience recently of listening to someone, and I was honestly trying to practice just having a really calm, quiet mind. And this person had a tiny little problem. I don't even remember what it was. And as I sat and listened, she worked her way around to the solution. She had come to me
Yeah.
with a question, and I just stayed quiet and calm, and she figured it out herself. It was so
Mhm.
beautiful to see. And
And did
she
she
knows
say
what's right.
and did she say, "Oh, thank you so much. You helped me so much," and inside or outside, you're saying,
I didn't do anything. Yeah.
"But yet we do something because it's
Mm.
vastly different." Can you think of the last time that somebody listened to you and just and they didn't leave? And we know what it feels like when somebody's present with us, whether they're
Mhm.
talking or not talking, nodding or not nodding. We know what it feels like. Everybody knows what it feels like to really have somebody listening to them.
Yeah.
And we know what it's like to have somebody distracted, like they're going, "Oh, where's my phone?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. What? Oh, turn. Oh, what? I'm sorry. What did you say? We know what that feels like. And so you can say, I didn't do anything. You arrived at this conclusion yourself. Very true. But that's why I have a program with a colleague, Lori Carpenos. I think she's been on your podcast before,
She has. Yeah.
called The Gift of Deep Listening. It is
Mm.
a gift to
Mhm.
give. And when you've given it and you're the listener, there is something magical that does happen in that space, that third space, that interplay between two human beings that you walk away feeling, "Ooh, there's
Mhm.
something really special in it." So, yeah, there is a big difference between the two. So you're that's a great example that your client or whatever had that experience with
Mhm.
you, and you look back and you go, "I didn't really say anything. You figured that out yourself." However, how many coaches would have done that and not said, "All right, this is what we need to do. You need to, meditate, take 2 deep breaths and call me in the morning," or whatever, right?
Right.
right? Give
Yes.
them a
Yeah.
list of things that, like, okay, let's make a checklist, a good column and a bad column. And, there's lots of tricks and tools that have their place sometimes and have worked in the past, but there's something really valuable about the three principles, knowing that we're already uniquely able to live in this world that we live in. And when other person is able to listen to us and hear us, we get to realize that again ourselves and pick up our mat and walk.
Yeah. And with our busy lives and how distracted we all are, when you're teaching about deep listening, do you ever get pushback about, oh, I don't have time to do that? Especially, I guess I'm thinking of nurses. They're going from
Well,
room to
yeah,
room
we're going to be I haven't trial ballooned it with a group of nurses yet. The
mm,
people that have taken the class deep listening read the description and go, "Oh, I'm interested in that."
hmm
So they're already coming prepared with an interest in learning more about that. What I can say that I have seen over time is that people are a bit gobsmacked at how simple it is and how
mm,
much they gain from it on both sides. These are, when you're in a class or in a workshop, go off and listen to another person for 5 minutes and let them listen to you for 5 minutes. And the subject is your favorite book. It's something a bit contrived, but even in that, as opposed to like, I'm in a muddle, something's really upsetting. I'm going to call my best friend. I'm just going to ask her if she can just listen to me and let me, you know, I'm doing this and I'm recalling my own stepson who's 35 years old now. But I remember when he was 17, he was sitting in my dining room saying, I, I can't even hear myself think. I can't even hear myself think. And I didn't know the principles then, but I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Right? And I remember my heart going out to him when at that time going, "Oh, I wish I could help you quiet your mind,
mm,
um, so that you could hear yourself." Because he was just full of all these different voices, teachers and mom and dad and stepmom and, he was like, "Oh." So even he was 17 and he knew that inside was the direction.
hmm
Um, so the pushback is not really because again, people kind of self-select in here. So I'm kind of curious when we introduce these things to nurses and so forth. And there's a number of healthcare providers in the three principles world who are on board and they get it and they know what it's like to listen to their patients or to listen at work, listen to their colleagues, listen to their boss, listen to they already go, oh yeah, a beautiful North Star to follow. So,
mm,
um, yeah, I'm looking forward to figuring out how much pushback. But yeah,
hmm
I can imagine with anybody, you think you don't have the time. And I don't know, how much time do you really need to listen to somebody before they can reach a conclusion? Hours, days? Our friend Sid, I was just reading The Missing Link before we got on the call. And one thought, you
hmm
don't have to be in therapy for 42 years to get well or to release yourself from mental strain or difficulty. It's just one thought. And I remember in my early days of the principal, I go, what is the one thought? What is the thought I'm supposed to have? I didn't
Yes.
realize it was counting. I thought he was giving content, like it's just one thought, and I'm not telling you what it is. You're gonna have to figure it out. And I was like,
Yes.
what is it? So, but it took me I was like, oh, that's what they mean. My one thought. Okay, I got it. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. And
yeah,
it occurs to me too that when we know that that place of peace exists within us, we don't need 15 minutes to quiet our mind down in order to listen, and then we hopefully can just drop in
yeah, yeah. Once you know it's there,
once you know it's there. Exactly.
once you know it's there, and it's sort of like, wow, it's always been there.
hmm
Like, you mean I don't have to count all my oxygen molecules? Oh. It's always been there. My lungs have always operated this way ever since I was born. I'm 65 now. I didn't real Wow, what a relief. I have a lot more time in my day now that I know I don't have to count oxygen molecules. I mean, to me, it's very similar to that. Like, we really don't have to be quite so revved up, whacking moles, managing stress, scanning the horizon, counting the beans. We can literally just kind of sit back and go, "Eh, my mind and my heart and my body and my soul know how to recalibrate, but I
Mhm,
keep overriding the system." I've been taught since I was little to override the system,
mhm,
you know.
mhm.
Western cultures have been taught to override the system. I think that there are probably a lot of, I don't, what's the right term these days, developing nations or whatever, people who don't, I don't know, people who live differently than I do, who are like, yeah,
Yeah.
they don't worry about a lot of these things. The Inuits, what people all over the world just don't think like this.
Mhm.
Don't worry about these kind of things. Don't get revved up by these kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we're coming close to the end of our time together. I
Oh,
wanted to
wow.
ask you, and it goes by fast, hey?
Mm.
Is there anything you'd like to share that we haven't touched on yet today?
Ah. Hmm. That's a really good question. I don't think so. I really have loved the way this conversation was very organic, and I really appreciate that when people share their experiences with one another. Like, you shared your experience with coaching somebody else. I shared your experience of my experience of the ahas that I got as a nurse. There's something really restorative and connecting, um, about coming from that place, sharing life in life, person in person,
Mhm.
versus let me tell you about the last 5 courses that I've taken and the last 8 books I've read about the 3 principles, and I wanna share some data points with you and some studies, and so I guess that would be something I would wanna share with
Mm,
people, is to really take full advantage every time you can of being with another human being in the grocery store line, at the bank, in your home, online, that there's such tremendous beauty in all human beings. I'm reading the book by Jacqueline Hollows called,
Wings of an Angel.
thank you,
Yeah, she's been on the show as well.
so good,
Oh,
so good. And now we're talking about hardcore, locked up for many, many years criminals in the United Kingdom. And the way Jacqueline Hollows is able to just go, aren't they just lovely? Aren't they
mm,
just a yummy person? Can't you just see how tender-hearted and sweet they are? And I don't know if everybody could see that. It's just an extreme example. So I'm not walking around with people who are in prison uniforms and carrying billy clubs, but sometimes I can say, oh, I mean, I am from the United States of America. I'll let that just sit there like that, just like that. I'm just gonna, there's a, we're in weird times well, actually in Canada too. I know that there's
mm,
a little bit of interesting, trying to stay balanced as a citizen in Canada and the United States. And like I said, I'm 65. I don't remember being mad at people before.
mm,
And I feel you shouldn't think like that. You shouldn't vote like that. Where did that come from? You know?
mhm,
So if I can apply that, remember, wings of an angel,
mm,
prisoners, like everybody is a beautiful example of divine engineering, and just
mhm,
sitting with people and being with
mm.
people and sharing just real stuff. And I
Mhm.
mean, we didn't go deep. Like when I say real stuff, I don't mean like the most deeply personal things. We just shared our experience of living as women wherever we lived. And it didn't take much. It doesn't take much. And so I
Mhm.
just encourage people to really trust that human beings are pretty amazing and cool, and
Mhm.
and give everybody a bit of a listen and trust that they're beautifully made from the inside out.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. That's
Yeah.
lovely. So tell us where we can find out more about you and your work and about your class that you're putting on with Lori.
Yeah. Yeah, the next one's actually gonna be a weekend one. We're calling it 5 hours for the gift of deep listening. So it's a weekend coming up April 5 through 7, 2024, which again, when anybody's watching this a year from now, it won't be. But that's okay. But my a great place to find me is on my website. It's forwardwithwendy.com, www.forwardwithwendy.com. And and Lori and I do have, and you'll see on the page different programs that we have. And yeah, I think that's probably the best place to locate
Great.
me. Yeah,
Okay, I will put links in the show notes as well
perfect.
to those things. Thank you
Great.
so much for being with me here today. I really
Thank you. It
appreciate it.
was lovely.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.